exceptional handling. So I have created a class here, exceptional handling, by the name exceptional handling, and here we have two kinds of exception. You see, the first exception that we see here is uncaught exception. For example, if I tell you that, okay, this is uncaught exception. For example, this is an uncaught exception. Why? The compiler is not giving us an error, but when we run it, it will give us an arithmetic exception because we can't divide it by 0. Okay, so yeah, it is giving another error. So just a second. I'll hide this. Let's try now, and it should give me an exception called arithmetic exception. See here. Okay, so this is called uncaught exception. Coming to the caught exception, here we can see that the thread.sleep is asking us to, unhandle exception. This is unhandle, so that's why it's throwing us an error even at the compiler. Compiler is given us an error. Okay, so here why we give exception handling? So why we need to catch the exception? The reason is, if we start running the code and the exception comes, the execution will stop at that. Okay, so so when it gives an exception, so we have to handle it, whatever the issue is. When you run it, it will give you an exception. So okay, so here we have another instance. Here what we will do is exception only. For example, we have a an object which is referring to null. Okay, so this is null, and if you run try to run this program now, what will it give us? Null pointer exception. Why? Because a is null. So how is it referring when object is null? How is it even referring to the, okay, so null pointer exception will come. Why? Because object is null and it's giving us an error. So we need to handle such exceptions. Okay, that is needed. Otherwise the execution will stop. As you can see, the execution stopped here. It did not print anything. If I write something like right here, for example ABC, it won't print it because of the null pointer exception. What if I want to print it? So in that case, we use try catch block. So try catch block is basically used to handle the exceptions first of all. Okay, so here we have a try catch block. Here what we do is we write try. We don't use any brackets, and then we start the code that we are going to use. Okay, here we'll know that this will give arithmetic exception, so we use the catch block, and in the brackets we use arithmetic exception.e, and so catch block is basically used for reporting. Okay, if I just run the try catch has to be used together. If I just run try, it will throw us an error. To fix that exception, to handle that exception, we use the catch block. In catch block we mention the exception that is going to come. Okay, and then bring whatever you want to execute. So in this case, initially it was not executing. Now let's see if it executes. We should see that ABC is getting printed. Okay, so we can see that ABC is getting printed. Now there is this function called e.print stack test. It shows the message like what was the error that we got. Okay, so it's showing divided by 0. Okay, so still ABC got executed. Why? We have catched the exception. And if I remove this, we have this e.getMessage method also. So if I try to run it, see, divided by 0 will be thrown here. Okay, so this is it. If I run this, giving divider, print stack test, stack trace, it will show us. Okay, divided by 0 is the stack trace. Okay, and arithmetic exception is coming. Okay, so that's done. Now coming to the throws keyword. we have a throws keyword. So what's the difference between exception and throws? Okay, so throws is basically used for, just a minute. Okay, so here we have throws keyword. So I've created a class called throws keyword, and here I've created a new object. Okay, and object is this reference variable. We copy here and new. Yes, everyone knows this. Now I've written two methods. Okay, sum and div method. Let's just remove this. Now, okay. So if I run this, okay. So what I've written is, this is div method which I've written, and sum is calling the div method, and then using the object I'm calling the sum method. Okay, I'm writing ABC. See, ABC did not get printed and we got the arithmetic exception. Now how do we handle this? So we use the throws keyword here. Throws arithmetic exception. Now this is throwing exception, but in sum is calling div method. So this is throwing method. Who will here who will throw? Like who will catch it? Sum will catch it, but sum also will throw the exception. So sum will throw the exception. Okay, and now since a main method is calling this, so main method will also throw this exception. Now if we try to run this, it will still give us that error. Okay, why? Because, and ABC will not get printed. Why? Because no one is handling this exception. The main method is throwing this exception, but it's not being handled right now. In try catch block was handling it. Okay, but in this, no one is catching it. Okay, so how to fix this? Now in this we use so why we used throws given the first thing. See, if there are 100 lines of code, will you write try catch block everywhere? No, right? So that's why we use throws keyword. So wherever the exception is, we use the throws keyword. Okay, 100 lines of codes are there, 100 try catch blocks we run. So that's not right way. So that's why we use. So here, how do we handle it? We remove this. Okay, we remove this, and we remove this also, and we remove this also. We remove this. Now use the try method. Try. See, in the try we are using this, and in the catch exception we are catching the exception. Catch arithmetic exception E, and here we are writing anything that we want to write. So now if we run this, we can see that ABC will get executed. Why? Because when sum executes it, it will go to div. Div will throw an exception and it will be caught, and then ABC will get printed. Okay. Now here there are two classes. Okay, error and exception. So exception and exception, we have different kinds of exception, right? There is null pointer exception, array out of bounds exception. Okay, different kinds of exception is there. Arithmetic exception. Okay, so that kind of is there. So we can get error also, we can get exception also. Okay, so if we get an error, then this will not be able to catch it. Arithmetic exception will be able to catch it. What you can do is you can write here exception. Okay, like this. That also can handle this. Okay, so ABC will still get printed. Now so sometimes we can get an error also, right? So this won't be able to catch it, right? So what do we do? So what is the difference between error and exception? So error is like syntax error, fatal error, anything in the code. Okay, fatal error, something memory full error we are getting. So that is an error. Unwanted like exception means unwanted something code, unwanted problem in the code, like arithmetic exception, array index out of bound, null pointer exception. Okay, so throwable is a superclass of error and exception. So here we can use throwable also. Okay, throwable. Okay, it's the parent class of throwable is object for all these classes. So throwable acts as a superclass for error and exception. So we can use throwable as well. Okay. So this is it for the throws keyword, and we will learn next throw keyword. Okay.